They don't respect the loud ones. They fear the quiet ones, the ones who sit still, the ones who say nothing but see everything, the ones whose silence isn't weakness, but warning. Their mind isn't noise, it's calculation, observation, precision. That kind of mind is not gifted. It's built, and it's built in the fire. Betrayal, disappointment, abandonment, rejection, the pain of being misunderstood, the sting of being used, the cold truth that most people aren't loyal. They're opportunistic. A mind that's strong doesn't come from books or speeches. It comes from seeing too much, feeling too deeply, and surviving it without becoming what tried to destroy it. It learns not to beg, not to chase, not to explain. It stops reacting. It watches. It doesn't raise its voice. It sharpens its vision. A blade doesn't need to scream to cut. That kind of mind detaches. Not because it doesn't care, but because it's dangerous to care about things that poison peace. And when that level of detachment is reached, a transformation begins. Validation becomes irrelevant. Approval becomes noise. Criticism becomes comedy. And peace becomes the only standard. People don't know how to respond to that, because most minds are built to please, to perform, to be accepted. But a strong mind doesn't seek applause, it seeks alignment. Not everyone is allowed in. Not everyone deserves access. Most want attention. Very few want depth. And depth is dangerous to shallow people. That's why strength is misunderstood, mislabeled as arrogance, coldness, intimidation. But it's none of those things. It's clarity. A strong mind doesn't hate. Hatred still means emotional investment. It doesn't need revenge. Revenge is for the wounded. Power is for the healed. It lets go, quietly, completely. No messages, no warnings, no scenes, just silence. And that silence, that's what echoes, long after others forget the noise. Because the quietest exits leave the loudest impact. Most can't comprehend that kind of discipline. To walk away, not to punish, but to protect. To no longer engage, to no longer explain. They'll call it changed. They'll call it cold. But the truth is, nothing changed. The mask just fell, and what remained was real. Strong minds don't argue with fools. They don't defend their peace in rooms filled with chaos. They don't chase apologies. They don't beg to be seen, because they see themselves clearly. And when that happens, the games end. The performance stops, the energy shifts, and people notice. Suddenly, manipulation loses its grip. Guilt no longer works. False flattery sounds hollow, and silence becomes sacred. There's nothing to prove. There's nothing to fix. There's only what is and what no longer deserves attention. That's Machiavellian power, not domination of others, mastery of self. The ability to remain still in storms, the refusal to flinch under pressure, the strength to choose peace over performance. It's the kind of power that can't be taught. It's awakened. It's born when the mind decides it's done bleeding for people who never learned how to heal themselves. And once awakened, it's permanent. No reset, no return. A strong mind stops explaining where it went when no one noticed it was hurting. It stops overcompensating for the emotional illiteracy of others. It realizes that being misunderstood isn't the problem. Wasting energy to be understood is. So, it watches, silently. Not with malice, with precision. Every interaction becomes a mirror, every reaction a test, every word spoken, weighed before delivered. Because once strength is built, true, internal, unshakable strength, the world cannot distract it anymore. The mask becomes unnecessary, the smile no longer fake, the soul armored, not hidden, but protected. People can feel it. They go quiet around it. Not because they're afraid, but because something inside them senses the depth, the gravity of a presence that doesn't need attention to exist, that doesn't need noise to command respect, that doesn't need company to feel whole. A strong mind knows solitude isn't lonely. It's necessary. It's the space where clarity grows, where illusions die, where masks are no longer needed. In solitude, the mind sharpens. It no longer craves. It no longer begs. It selects. It filters. It chooses. Not from ego, but from truth. And truth, in its purest form, is ruthless. It cuts away fantasy. It exposes false bonds. It burns away everything that cannot hold weight under silence. That's where peace is born, and peace is not soft. It is fierce. It looks like stillness, but it's storm-tested. It looks like silence, but it roars beneath the surface. Peace isn't passive. It's power, refined, focused, untouchable. And those who've never tasted it mistake it for distance. They say, "You've changed." They say, "You're not the same." And they're right. Because that old mind, the one that tolerated too much, apologized too quickly, explained too often, it's gone. Replaced by something colder, yes, but clearer, no longer reactive, no longer accessible to chaos, no longer addicted to pain disguised as connection. That kind of mind scares people because it can't be manipulated. It doesn't bite the bait. It doesn't seek validation from the very hands that once tried to control it. It simply exists in presence, in power, in silence. That is the highest form of Machiavellian strength. Not the one that schemes to take control, but the one that no longer needs to. Because when a mind becomes this strong, it doesn't compete. It observes. It doesn't scream. It recalibrates. It doesn't threaten. It disappears, and its absence becomes its final weapon. Let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them replay the silence. Because when the mind no longer reacts, the world doesn't know what to do with it. It's no longer part of the game. It became the board, and no one wins against the board. That is how silence becomes strategy, and strategy becomes survival, and survival becomes sovereignty. Build a mind that doesn't flinch. Build a mind that doesn't need to speak to be heard. Build a mind that silences the world simply by refusing to let it in. And if every word spoken here didn't feel like something new, but like something ancient being remembered, it's because this kind of strength already lives within, buried beneath the noise, beneath the need to be liked, beneath the years of shrinking, apologizing, doubting, beneath every version of you that was taught to survive instead of rule. This isn't motivation, this is memory. The memory of who you were before you were tamed, before the world broke your voice into pieces, before they convinced you that silence was weakness, that stillness was surrender, that detachment meant something was wrong with you. But now, the silence isn't empty anymore. It's full of lessons, full of scars, full of clarity. And in that clarity, you no longer need to chase anything. Not approval, not revenge, not closure. You realize the real power was never in winning arguments. It was in becoming someone no one dares to argue with. This is the rebirth of the mind, not a louder mind, a sovereign one. The kind of mind that doesn't tremble when abandoned, that doesn't bargain for respect, that doesn't explain its boundaries to people who profit from their absence. Let the world call it cold. Let them call it ruthless. Let them call it distant. Because they only call it names when they can no longer control it. And that's the final stage of power. Not when you control others, but when they lose control over you. So, let them feel your absence. Let them hear your silence. Let them watch from the outside while you evolve in peace, untouchable by chaos, unreadable to those who once thought they had you figured out. And understand this, a truly strong mind does not make noise to be seen. It becomes so still that everything around it has no choice but to notice. This is not a performance. This is not content. This is a mirror. And if you're still here, it's because something inside you recognized your reflection in the silence. You don't need permission to walk this path. But if you want to continue building a mind like this, the kind of mind that silences the world by refusing to flinch, then stay close. Subscribe to this channel, not for likes, not for trends, but for truth. For the kind of philosophy that doesn't comfort your ego, but challenges it. For the kind of psychology that doesn't numb the pain, but transforms it. For the kind of silence that doesn't hide weakness, but reveals strength. Here, we don't shout to be heard. We build minds that are too strong to ignore. So, subscribe and let the world feel the power of your silence.